Queen Lyrath stood tall on the raised crystal platform inside the grand hall of the Vexry Palace. Her scales shimmered deep purple and gold under the soft glow of floating light orbs. She was the ruler of the Dominion, a vast empire that stretched across many star systems. Her people, the Vexry, were known for their strong minds and sharp technology. They could speak thoughts directly into other heads, and their ships were made of living crystal that grew stronger with every battle. Humans were new to them, small weak creatures from a blue planet called Earth. The Vexry saw humans as useful only for hard work in places too hot or too poisonous for nobles. A new trade agreement forced Queen Lyrath to accept a human guard in her court. She did not like it, but she signed the papers with one sharp claw. The human chosen was named Elias Kane. He was 34 years old with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. He had been a soldier on Earth, once keeping peace in dangerous places. Now he wore the plain grey uniform of a liaison with no fancy decorations. He carried no weapons because the Vexry did not allow them near the Queen. Elias walked quietly through the shining corridors of the palace. His boots made soft sounds on the smooth floor. Vexry servants watched him with cold stares. They whispered that he smelled strange, like dirt and metal mixed together. Elias did not speak, unless someone asked him something. He kept his face still and his hands loose at his sides. On his first day, he was told to stand watch near the royal family rooms. The guards there were tall Vexry with spears of blue energy. They ignored him mostly. Elias stood straight and looked around without moving his head much. That was when he first noticed the princess. Princess Aelith was the only child of Queen Lyrath. She looked young, like a human teenager with long silver hair and large violet eyes. Her scales were pale blue and smooth like fresh ice. She stood half hidden behind a tall carved pillar. Her eyes were fixed on Elias. She did not blink. She did not move closer. She just watched. Elias felt the stare like warm sunlight on his skin. He turned his head slowly and met her gaze. For a moment their eyes locked. Then Aelith stepped back into the shadow and vanished down a side hall. Elias said nothing about it. He went back to watching the doors as his job required. Days passed in the same quiet way. Elias ate simple food brought from the human embassy. He slept in a small room with plain walls. He exercised in an empty training yard at dawn when no one else was around. Every time he walked, the royal wing Princess Aelith appeared. She never came near enough to speak. She stood at corners or behind curtains or high on balconies, always watching. Her eyes followed. His hands, his steps, his face. Once when Elias bent to pick up a drop data pad, her stare grew sharper. He felt it like fingers brushing his neck. He looked up. She was there again, 20 steps away. Her 6-fingered hand rested on the railing. She did not smile or frown. She just looked. Elias nodded once, a small polite movement. Aelith did not answer. She turned and walked away slowly. The Queen heard the talk from her advisors. They said the princess was curious about the strange human. One advisor laughed and called it childish interest. Another said maybe the human had done something wrong without knowing. Queen Lyrath listened with her head tilted. She felt no real worry yet. Her daughter had always been quiet, different from other Vexry young ones. Aelith never joined the mind songs that young nobles sang together. She preferred to sit alone and watch the stars through wide windows. The Queen told herself it was nothing important. Still, she ordered a quiet check on the human. Scanners swept Elias while he slept. They found normal human thoughts simple and strong. No hidden weapons, no secret plans. His mind was hard to read deeply, like trying to see through thick fog. The Vexry did not like that. It made them uneasy. But the report said he was safe. Queen Lyrath put the matter aside. Trade talks continued. Ships carried rare minerals from Earth to Vexry worlds. In return, crystal tools and knowledge went back to humans. Elias stayed at his post every day. He learned the palace paths without asking for maps. He greeted servants with short words when they passed. Some started to nod back. Others still ignored him. Princess Aelith kept watching. One evening during a quiet hour, Elias stood guard outside the garden doors. The garden was full of glowing flowers that hummed softly. Aelith walked out alone. She wore a light robe that floated around her like mist. She stopped 10 steps from Elias. Her eyes locked on his face again. Elias looked back, steady and calm. For the first time she spoke. Her voice was soft and clear like water over stones. Why do you never look afraid? Elias took a slow breath. He answered in the same calm tone. I have seen worse things than stairs, Princess. Salith tilted her head. Her silver hair caught the light. Worse things. Yes, ma'am. She stepped one pace closer. Her eyes never left his. You saved someone once. Elias felt surprise move through him, but his face stayed still. He did not know what she meant. Maybe. Salith said nothing more. She turned and walked back into the garden. The flowers hummed louder as she passed. Elias stood there a long time. He thought about her words. He remembered a battle long ago on a broken ship. He remembered pulling a small pod free from fire and smoke. He had not known what was inside. He had just done his job. Now the memory felt heavier. Queen Lyrath sat in her private chamber later that night. A servant brought news. The princess spoke to the human. The queen lifted one brow ridge. What did she say? The servant bowed low. She asked why he is not afraid. And she spoke of someone he saved. Queen Lyrath felt a small cold feeling start in her chest. She pushed it down. She told herself it was only a child's question. But the cold feeling stayed. She looked out at the stars above the palace. Somewhere out there humans kept living their short, busy lives. One of them stood in her halls every day. And her daughter watched him like he held a secret she needed. The queen closed her eyes. She reached out with her mind to touch Salith's thoughts. But her daughter's mind was quiet like always. No song, no color, just silence. Queen Lyrath opened her eyes again. She decided to watch closer. She would see what this human really was, and why her daughter could not look away. The palace lights dimmed for the night cycle. Elias finished his shift and walked back to his room. He passed empty halls and sleeping guards. He thought about the princess and her question. He did not know the answer himself, but he knew one thing. Something was changing in this place, and he was part of it whether he wanted to be or not. He closed his door and sat on the edge of his bed. Outside the window the stars burned bright and far. Somewhere in the palace Princess Salith stood at her own window. She looked at the same stars, but her thoughts were on the human with calm eyes. The one who never looked afraid. The one who once reached into fire for something small and alive. She placed her hand on the cool glass. Her breath made a soft mist. She whispered one word to the empty room. Elias. Then she turned away and went to sleep. The night passed quietly over the palace. But the quiet felt different now. It felt full of things waiting to happen. Queen Lyrath lay in her wide bed. She did not sleep right away. She thought about her daughter. She thought about the human. And for the first time in many years she felt something close to doubt. The stars outside kept shining. They did not care about queens or princesses or humans. They just shone. And somewhere in the dark a small spark of change began to grow. It started with one stare. And it would not stop there. Weeks passed in the palace like slow-moving water. Elias kept his routine steady. He stood guard at the same places every day. He ate his meals alone. He walked the halls without hurry. The vexery around him grew used to seeing the quiet human. Some servants even said good morning in their sharp voices. Others still looked at him like he was a strange animal. Princess Salith never stopped watching. Wherever Elias went in the royal wing she appeared. She stood behind thin crystal screens. She sat on high benches in the open halls. She leaned against walls in quiet corners. Her violet eyes followed him always. Never angry, never friendly, just steady. The court began to notice more. Advisors talked in low voices during meetings. They said the princess had chosen a new interest. Like a child who finds a shiny stone and keeps it close. One advisor suggested sending the human away. Queen Lyrath shook her head. She said the treaty must stand. Inside she felt the unease grow a little bigger each day. She told herself it was nothing. But the stares continued. One morning Elias carried a small box of tools to fix a broken light panel near the throne room. He knelt on the floor with his back to the hall. Salith came silently. She stood 5 steps behind him. She watched his hands move. She watched the way his shoulders stayed relaxed. She watched the small scar on his left wrist catch the light. Elias felt her there. He did not turn right away. He finished the repair first. Then he stood up slow and careful. He looked at her. She did not move. Her face stayed blank. Elias spoke soft. "Can I help you, princess?" Salith opened her mouth, then closed it. She shook her head once. Then she walked away without a word. Elias watched her go. He felt something strange in his chest. Not fear, not worry, just a quiet pull. Like a memory trying to surface. He pushed it down and went back to work. That same day, Queen Lyrath called her best mind readers. She ordered them to watch Elias closer. They sat in shadows during his shifts. They tried to slip into his thoughts. They found walls. Thick, soft walls made of human will. They could feel surface feelings, calm, steady, patient. But deeper, nothing clear. One reader said it felt like looking into deep water. You see shapes but no details. The Queen listened. She felt more uneasy. She asked if he was dangerous. They said no. Just different. Very different. The whispers in court grew louder. Some said the princess was broken. In her mind. Others said the human had some hidden power. A few joked that maybe Salith wanted him as a pet. Queen Lyrath heard it all. She kept her face still. But at night she could not rest easy. Then came the banquet. It was a grand event to celebrate the new trade route. Long tables filled the great hall. Crystal bowls held glowing fruits from distant worlds. Music floated through the air like thin threads of light. Vexari nobles wore their brightest robes. Their scales flashed every color. Elias stood at his post near the main doors. He wore his grey uniform clean and straight. He watched the crowd without staring. Princess Salith sat at the high table beside her mother. She wore a dress of pale silver that caught every light. Her eyes found Elias right away. She watched him across the room. Queen Lyrath noticed. She felt the cold feeling again. Stronger now. She turned to an advisor. "Keep extra guards near the princess." The advisor bowed and moved away. The banquet went on. Nobles talked and laughed in their mind voices. Some spoke out loud for the human guest. Elias stayed quiet. He ate nothing. He just watched. Then it happened fast. A group of radicals from a far border world had slipped in. They hated the trade with humans. They hated weakness. They carried a small device hidden in a gift box. When the Queen stood to give a speech, they acted. The device sent out a sharp psychic pulse. It was meant to break minds, to make every Vexari in the room scream and fall. The pulse hit like thunder in the head. Nobles clutched their skulls. Advisors dropped to their knees. Servants cried out. Queen Lyrath staggered but held her place. Her mind fought the attack. Pain filled the air like smoke. Elias felt nothing. The pulse slid over him like wind over stone. He saw the attackers move. 3 of them tall with dark cloaks. One held the device high. Another pulled a thin blade. They rushed toward the high table. Elias moved without thinking. He crossed the room in long steps. He grabbed the first attacker by the arm. He twisted hard. The blade clattered to the floor. He kicked the second one in the knee. The man fell with a grunt. The third turned to fire the device again. Elias lunged. He tackled the radical to the ground. They rolled. Elias pinned the arm with the device. He smashed it against the stone floor. It broke with a bright flash. The pulse stopped. The room went quiet except for heavy breathing. Elias stood up. His lip bled from a small cut. His uniform was torn at the shoulder. He looked around. The Vexari were slowly getting up. Some still held their heads. Queen Lyrath stared at him. Her eyes wide. Princess Salith had not moved from her seat. She had not flinched. She had not cried out. She just watched Elias. Closer now. Her eyes fixed on the blood on his lip. On the way he stood straight even after the fight. On the calm in his face. Queen Lyrath felt something shift inside her. Something big and cold. She looked at her daughter. Salith never looked away from the human. Not once. The Queen remembered old stories. About bonds formed in danger. About minds marked by strong feelings. She pushed the thought away. But it would not leave. Guards rushed in. They took the attackers away. The banquet ended early. Nobles left in quiet groups. Elias stayed until the last guest was gone. Then he wiped the blood from his lip with his sleeve. He bowed once to the Queen. Then he walked out. Salith watched him go. Her hand rested on the table. Her fingers curled tight. Queen Lyrath sat alone for a long time. She looked at the broken device on the floor. She looked at the place where Elias had stood. She felt the doubt grow roots. Why did the pulse not touch him? Why did her daughter never look away? Why did the human risk his body for them? She had no answers yet. But she knew one thing clear. This was no simple curiosity. This was something deeper. Something old. Something that started long before Elias came to the palace. She stood up slow. She walked to her private rooms. She closed the heavy doors. She sat in the dark. She thought about her daughter. About the human. About the banquet. About the stare that never ended. Outside the palace the stars turned slow. The night felt heavier now. Full of questions no one had asked yet. Elias went to his small room. He sat on the bed. He touched the cut on his lip. It stung a little. He thought about the pulse. He remembered old training. Old machines that blocked mind attacks. He had felt nothing because his mind was his own. Not open like theirs. He thought about Salith. About the way she watched. Not like a child. Not like a predator. Like someone looking for home. He lay back. He stared at the ceiling. He did not sleep right away. In her room Salith stood at the window. She pressed her hand to the glass. She looked at the dark sky. She whispered his name again. Elias. Soft like a secret. She did not know why. But she felt it. A pull. A thread. Something from before she could remember. Something safe. Something real. The palace slept. But not everyone rested. 3 minds stayed awake. 1 queen. 1 princess. 1 human. Each thinking about the others. Each feeling the change. It grew stronger now. Like a storm building far away. Ready to break soon. The night held its breath. Waiting for what came next. Queen Lyrath could not rest after the banquet. The image of her daughter staring at the blood on Elias' face stayed in her mind like a sharp thorn. She walked the empty halls long after midnight. Her claws clicked softly on the crystal floor. She passed sleeping guards who bowed without waking fully. She reached the sealed door to the forbidden archives. Only queens could enter. Only when the bloodline faced true danger. She placed her palm on the smooth panel. It glowed warm under her touch. The door slid open without sound. Inside the air felt cool and still. Rows of glowing crystal pillars held the history of her house. Each pillar stored memories, thoughts, images from queens long gone. She walked to the center pillar. The one that held the records of her own line. She touched it gently. Colors swirled inside the crystal. Memories rose like smoke. She searched for the year 14 cycles back. The year of the border. Skirmish with human privateers. She found the entry. A small scout ship had been attacked. The ship carried her then unborn daughter in the gestation pod. The pod was fragile crystal and soft tissue, meant to grow the child in perfect safety. The attackers used a human weapon. A PSI silencer field. It was new then experimental. Made to block Vexry mines in battle. The field hit the scout ship hard. Shields failed in seconds. The pod took the full wave. The queenback then almost lost the child. But the pod survived. Barely. The record showed damage reports. Neural scarring in the developing brain. Telepathic centers twisted, burned quiet forever. The queen felt old pain rise again. She had hidden it from the court. She called it a minor flaw. She said her daughter was simply quiet. But the truth was worse. Salith would never sing mind songs. Never join the great chorus of her people. She would stay apart always. The record continued. It showed the rescue. A human boarding team cut through the hull. They pulled the pod free just before the reactor broke. 1 Marine led the way. He used hand tools to slice the burning metal. He dragged the pod to safety. His name appeared in red letters. Sergeant Elias Kane. Earth Force's identification number followed. Queen Lyrath stared at the name. Her breath caught sharp. She replayed the memory fragment attached. Grainy image from the scout ship camera. A human in heavy armor. Face hidden by helmet. But the movement's clear. Quick, sure, steady. He lifted the pod like it weighed nothing. He carried it through fire. He spoke calm words to his team. We got something alive here, keep moving. The pod was marked Royal. But in the chaos no one knew. The humans left soon after. They took nothing else. They just saved what they could. Queen Lyrath closed the memory. She stood still for a long time. Her mind raced. The silencer field had done more than scar. It had left an imprint. The raw, unfiltered mind of the nearest human. The one who touched the pod. The one whose emotions flooded the damaged links. Fear for life, determination to save, raw loyalty. No polish, no control, just pure human feeling. Salith never met him after. But the imprint stayed. Deep in the quiet places of her mind. When Elias arrived at court, the match was perfect. Same face, same voice, same calm. Her daughter recognized him without knowing why. She watched because he was the only real thing her broken mind had ever held. The anchor in silence. Queen Lyrath felt the floor shift under her. She leaned against the pillar. Her scales paled. She had thought her daughter flawed. Now she saw something else. Salith was not empty. She was filled with something the Vexry never had. A bond made in fire. A memory of rescue. A human mark that no telepathy could copy. The Queen left the archives. The door closed behind her. She walked back to her chambers. Her steps slow, heavy. She passed Salith's room. The door was open a little. She looked inside. Salith sat by the window. She stared at the stars. Her hand rested on the glass. Her face soft, calm. No pain, no anger. Just quiet watching. Queen Lyrath felt tears rise. Vexry queens did not cry. But tonight she almost did. She closed the door soft. She went to her own room. She sat on the wide bed. She thought about everything. The stairs, the banquet, the rescue. The pieces fit now. Her daughter had known Elias before words, before sight. She knew him in the dark place before birth. And he had never known. Queen Lyrath looked at her own hands. 6 fingers strong, perfect. She had ruled with mind and crystal. She had conquered worlds. But she could not give her child what Elias had given without trying. A safe place in chaos. A hand that pulled free. She stood up. She decided. She would not hide this anymore. She would face it. She would speak to the human. She would learn what kind of creature could leave such a mark. She walked to the window. The stars shone bright cold. They had seen empires rise and fall. They would see this too. A queen facing truth. A princess finding her missing piece. A human who never asked for thanks. Queen Lyrath whispered to the empty room. Why him? No answer came. But she knew. Because he did not look away. Because he acted when others ran. Because humans carried something raw and unbreakable. She turned from the window. She felt different now. Not weaker. Clearer. She would summon Elias soon. She would bring Salith. They would talk. No more secrets. No more watching from shadows. The truth would come out. And whatever happened next, the Dominion would never be the same. She lay down. She closed her eyes. Sleep came slow. But when it came, she dreamed of fire. Of a small pod. Of a human hand reaching in. She dreamed of her daughter safe. Because someone had to. She woke before dawn. She felt ready. The palace stirred around her. New day, new light. New questions. But now she had answers. Or at least the start of them. She rose. She dressed in simple robes. No crown today. She prepared to meet the human who saved a child. Without knowing it. She prepared to meet the man her daughter could not stop watching. She walked out into the hall. The day waited. Full of change. Full of things no queen had faced before. She took one step. Then another. Toward the truth that had waited 14 years. Toward the shocking realization that would change everything. Queen Lyrath waited until the palace lights dimmed for the evening cycle. She sent a single message to Elias through the guard captain. Come to the lower sanctum under the crystal. Spire alone. No weapons, no escort. The human received the order while he cleaned his uniform in his small room. He read the words twice. He felt no fear, only quiet curiosity. He folded the cloth, set it aside. He walked through the empty halls. His boots echoed soft. Guards nodded as he passed. They had seen him save the queen and princess. Respect showed in their eyes now. He reached the hidden lift at the base of the spire. It opened without sound. He stepped inside. The doors closed. The lift dropped smooth and fast. It stopped deep below the palace. The doors opened to a wide round chamber. Walls of clear crystal let in faint starlight from far above. In the center stood Queen Lyrath. She wore no crown, no heavy robes. Just simple dark cloth that covered her from neck to feet. Her scales looked duller in the low light. Beside her stood Princess Salith. The girl wore a plain grey shift. Her silver hair hung loose. Her violet eyes found Elias the moment he stepped out. She did not blink. Queen Lyrath spoke first. Her voice came low and steady. You saved her, Elias Kane. Elias stopped 3 steps from them. He looked at the queen, then at the princess. He kept his hands open at his sides. I pulled a pod from a burning ship years ago. I did not know it held your daughter. Queen Lyrath tilted her head. You did not need to know. You acted anyway. Elias shrugged small. It was my job. Mom. Someone was in trouble. I helped. The queen stepped closer. Her eyes searched his face. That someone was my child, still growing, still helpless. The silencer field scarred her mind. It left your echo inside her. Your feelings, your will, your stubborn heart. She carries you like a memory she never lost. Elias looked at Salith. The princess stepped forward slow. Her 6-fingered hand rose hesitant. She placed it flat against his chest. Right over his heart. She pressed gentle. Elias felt the warmth through his shirt. He did not move away. He looked down at her hand, then up at her face. Salith stared back. For the first time, something new flickered in her eyes. Not just watchfulness. Something softer. Like relief. Queen Lyrath watched them. Her throat tightened. She spoke again. She cannot speak mind to mind like us. She stays silent because of what happened that day. But she feels you. She knows you. Every time you walk these halls, she finds you. Because you are the only true thing her mind trusts. Elias swallowed once. His voice stayed calm. I am sorry for what she lost. Queen Lyrath shook her head sharp. Do not be sorry. You gave her something we could not. A bond without telepathy. A tie made in danger and choice. Vexury bonds form through minds. They can break or fade. Human bonds seem different. They hold even when everything burns. Elias looked at the queen. You rule a great empire. You have power we cannot match. Queen Lyrath laughed soft bitter. Power, yes. But not this. Not the simple act of reaching out when no one asks. Not the refusal to leave someone behind. She looked at her daughter. Salith still touched Elias' chest. Her fingers curled a little. Like she held something precious. Queen Lyrath felt the last wall inside her crack. She spoke to Elias direct. I thought humans weak. Short-lived, noisy. I was wrong. You are strong in ways we forgot. You endure. You care without reason. You protect without gain. My daughter sees that. She cannot look away because you remind her she was saved. She was chosen. Elias met the queen's gaze. I did not choose Her Highness. I just saw something alive and pulled it free. That is all. Queen Lyrath nodded slow. That is enough. More than enough. She turned to Salith. Daughter, speak if you can. Salith looked up at her mother. Then back at Elias. Her voice came quiet, clear. Thank you. 2 small words. But they filled the chamber. Elias blinked once. You are welcome, princess. Salith lowered her hand slow. She stepped back 1 pace. But her eyes stayed on him. Softer now. Calmer. Queen Lyrath felt peace settle in her chest. For the first time in years. She looked at Elias again. You will stay. Not as liaison. As guardian. Royal guardian by rescue. By right of act. The court will. Learn. They will honor it. Elias opened his mouth then closed it. He nodded once. If that is your wish. It is. Queen Lyrath stepped forward. She placed her own hand on his shoulder. Heavy, warm. You are kin now. By choice, not blood. By deed, not birth. Elias felt the weight. He accepted it. Thank you, Highness. The Queen removed her hand. She looked at her daughter. Salith, you may learn from him. Human ways, human words. No shame in silence. No shame in difference. We will make room for both. Salith nodded small. Her lips curved just a little. Almost a smile. The Queen turned to the lift. Call me. We will speak more tomorrow. Public words for the court. But tonight rest. Elias bowed slight. Good. Night, Highness. Good night, Princess. Salith watched him go. She did not follow. But her eyes stayed until the lift doors closed. Queen Lyrath and her daughter stood together. The chamber felt warmer now. Less empty. The Queen spoke soft. He is not like us. But perhaps that is good. Salith placed her hand in her mother's. She squeezed once. They walked to the lift together. Above them, the palace slept. Below them, truth had finally come out. Elias rode the lift up. He stepped into the night halls. He walked slow. His mind turned over the words. Kin by rescue. Guardian for life. He touched his chest where Salith had pressed. He felt the echo of her hand. He smiled small to himself. He reached. His room. He sat on the bed. He looked out the window. Stars shone bright. He thought about fire long ago. About a pod in smoke. About a life he never knew he saved. Now that life looked at him every day. And thanked him. He lay back. He closed his eyes. Sleep came easy. In the royal wing, Salith stood at her window. She looked at the same stars. She whispered his name once more. Elias. This time with warmth. With knowing. Queen Lyrath sat in her chamber. She thought about tomorrow. About the decree she would make. About the change coming to her empire. She felt no fear now. Only wonder. At the small human who never looked away. At the daughter who found her voice in silence. At the bond. That crossed species and years. She closed her eyes. She rested. The palace held its breath no longer. Change had arrived. Quiet, steady, real. Like a human heart beating strong. In the dark it kept going. And nothing would stop it now. Queen Lyrath stood before the full court the next morning. The great hall filled with nobles, advisors and guards. Crystal pillars glowed bright. Light danced across scales in every color. Everyone waited quiet. They knew something big would happen. The Queen walked to the high throne. She wore her full royal robes heavy with gold threads. Her crown sat straight on her head. Princess Salith stood at her right side. The girl wore a new robe of deep blue. Her silver hair braided with small shining stones. Elias stood at the left side. He wore a new uniform black with silver lines. The mark of royal guardian on his shoulder. A simple shield shape with a hand reaching out. The court looked at him different now. No more cold stares. Some bowed low. Others whispered soft. Queen Lyrath raised one hand. Silence fell complete. She spoke loud and clear. Hear me now, people of the Dominion. Today we change an old way. We honor a deed done long ago. A human named Elias Kane saved my unborn child. He pulled her pod from fire and death. He asked nothing in return. Because of that act my daughter lives. She carries his mark in her mind. A bond stronger than any we know. He is no longer guest or servant. He is kin by rescue. Royal guardian forever. The court will treat him as family. His voice will be heard. His place will stay by our side. No one will mock my daughter's silence again. We will learn from her difference. We will learn from him. The nobles looked shocked. Some gasped quiet. Others nodded slow. A few smiled small. Queen Lyrath turned to Elias. She spoke softer. You may speak if you wish. Elias stepped forward one pace. He looked at the crowd. His voice stayed calm, steady. I came here for a job. I stayed because it felt right. I never asked for this honor. But I accept it. I will guard the queen and princess with my life. Not because I must, but because I choose to. He looked at Salith. She met his eyes. A small smile touched her lips. The court clapped hands together. The sound rolled like waves. Even the old advisors joined. Queen Lyrath felt pride swell in her chest. She raised her hand again. The hall quieted. Let it be written. Let it be known across the stars. Humans are not lesser. They carry strength we need. They show us what loyalty means. When words fail. When minds break. A simple act can save everything. She stepped down from the throne. She walked to Elias. She placed both hands on his shoulders. You are one of us now. He nodded. Thank you, Highness. She turned to her daughter.
Saelit come.
The princess stepped forward. She stood between them. She looked at Elias. She spoke clear for all to hear. I am glad you are here. Elias smiled gentle. I am glad too. The court cheered louder. Music started soft from hidden players. The day turned to celebration. Tables filled with food from many worlds. Nobles talked to Elias. They asked questions. They listened to his answers. He spoke simple. He told stories of Earth, of soldiers helping strangers, of people who never gave up. They listened close. Some minds opened a little. They felt new ideas grow. Queen Lyrath watched from her seat. She saw her daughter walk with Elias. They moved through the crowd together. Salith pointed at things. She asked quiet questions. Elias answered patient. He taught her human words. She repeated them careful. The queen felt something warm inside. Not power. Not victory. Peace. True peace. Later, when the hall emptied, Queen Lyrath found Elias alone on a balcony. He looked at the stars. She walked up quiet. You look thoughtful. Elias turned. Just remembering, Highness. She stood beside him. What do you remember? The day I found the pod. Smoke everywhere. Alarms screaming. I saw something move inside. I could not leave it. So I cut it free. I carried it out. I never knew who was inside. Queen Lyrath looked at him long. You gave my daughter life. And now you give her more. A way to speak. A way to belong. Elias shook his head small. She gives me something too. A reason to stay. A family I never had. The queen felt surprise. You have no family on Earth. Not anymore. They passed long ago. I kept moving. Kept working. Now I have a place. Queen Lyrath placed her hand on the railing. Humans amaze me. You lose so much. Yet you keep giving. You refuse to look away. That is your greatest power. Elias looked at the stars. Maybe. But it is simple. When someone needs help, you help. That is all. The queen smiled soft. That is everything. They stood quiet for a time. Stars turned slow above them. Salith came out. She walked to them. She stood close to Elias. She looked up at him. Then at her. Mother. She spoke soft. I feel safe now. Queen Lyrath reached out. She touched her daughter's cheek. You always were. We just see it clear now. Salith looked back at Elias. She took his hand. He led her. They stood three together. A queen, a princess, a human. Different worlds. Different ways. One bond. The queen spoke low. We will change more. We will invite humans closer. We will learn their ways. We will share ours. Not as masters. As equals. Elias nodded. That sounds good. Salith squeezed his hand. She smiled real this time. Bright and open. The queen watched them. She felt the shocking truth settle deep. Humans did not need fleets or minds to win. They needed only hearts that refused to. Close. They conquered by caring. By staying. By choosing. She looked at the stars again. They shone the same. But everything below felt new. A dominion ready to grow. A family ready to heal. A future ready to begin. The night went on gentle. The palace lights dimmed slow. Three figures stayed on the balcony. They talked quiet. They laughed soft. They looked forward. No more stares from shadows. No more silence full of pain. Only open eyes. Only honest words. Only the simple strength that started it all. Someone had to. And he did. Now everyone knew why. The stars kept shining. They watched over the change. They watched over the small human who never looked away. They watched over the princess who found her place. They watched over the queen who learned the greatest lesson. Sometimes the mightiest empire falls not to weapons, but to a single act of kindness, and rises stronger because of it. The night held them close. The story did not end. It only changed into something brighter, something real, something human, in the best way possible.